Hello. This video is kind of going to be possibly a little bit more scattershot than normal, but this is going off of a comment slash conversation that I had on a Teching 101 video the other day. He was talking about Kid going to Elbath, and part of that involved a tangent of Vegapunk traveling with the Straw Hats, and him just like telling them all about how devil fruits work and everything, and Teching's opinion about whether or not which ones of them would be interested in what Vegapunk was talking about um, in that regard. And most of the ones that he mentioned, I agree with. But like before he went through his list, I was like, well, which ones of the Straw Hats would actually pay attention to like Vegapunk explaining things about devil fruits? And right off the bat, there's of course Frankie would pay attention because it's Vegapunk, and Vegapunk is like his idol at the moment. Usopp would pay attention because it would probably be very interesting, and he'd probably be interested in trying to learn a little bit more of how that works. And then Robin would be interested because of like the historical aspects of it, but probably those three definitely would be interested in it. Luffy wouldn't care. He may listen for 5 minutes and then just wander off again. Zoro wouldn't care. He'd fall asleep. Brooke may be somewhat interested in it, but I would say it would be somewhere along the lines of like he'd probably, half listen to it for a while, maybe ask a question every now and then, but nothing exceedingly, as involved as like Frankie and Robin and Usopp, in that regard. Jinbei would probably be a little bit interested in it, but then he'd probably, have to go and steer the ship or whatever, depending on where Vegapunk's giving this big presentation with like the rest of the, the rest of the satellite bodies around him helping with like, here, sir, I brought this visual. Here, we have this new visual aid. Somebody draw me this. He's got like a slideshow set up. Like I could, okay, so side note on that, I can see that either Edison or Pythagoras, since they're both clearly robots, I can see that one or both of them maybe have an attachment of like a projector, and like then Vegapunk can just use them as a projector to like show what he's talking about. Like he has diagrams and everything like that that explain how devil fruits work and everything. I can see that. But back to the Straw Hats. Sanji would possibly be somewhat interested in it for a little bit, but then he'd probably go and cook dinner. And then, then we have two crew members left. We have Chopper and we have Nami. Tekking said that Chopper wouldn't really be all that interested. And I'm sitting there going, no, Chopper would be very interested in this because Chopper is a doctor. He is a scientist as well. And while he may not have like the engineering type of science, concepts as like what Frankie does, he knows a lot about, the human body and about, just biology in general and everything. And Chopper already made adjustments and alterations to his own devil fruit with his rumble balls. And I'm like sitting there going like, no, Chopper would be very interested in this. And then I think Tekking also said that Nami may not be exceedingly interested in it, but I'm like, that one's where this main video is going, if you haven't figured that out already by the thumbnail. But talk about Chopper real quick first. So yes, Chopper of course has done all the different, augmentations and, adjustments and everything like that he's done to his own devil fruit with the rumble balls and everything, in regards to his own zone transformations and such. We saw that throughout, the whole story, ever since the beginning with Chopper. We've known about the rumble balls, and then we go through all of that, and we see what they do at various points in time after the time skip. He's improved on them a lot, and he has control over his monster point and everything. And, now we know that with Caesar's help, I guess would be a way of putting it, that Chopper has been able to adjust the rumble balls again and get them to the point where he can stay at his monster point a lot longer. But it does have, of course, all the drawbacks of afterwards he turns into, tiny, baby grandpa Chopper, which is adorable, yes, but is not exceedingly useful. And so we know that Chopper has gone through all of that. I would think that Chopper would be exceedingly interested in trying to figure out a way to get the rumble balls to the point where he doesn't really have any, very little to zero negative drawbacks from using them. We know that he can use, I don't remember if it's using 1 or 2 at this point in time that allows him to access Monster Point and whatever, but I think he has access to most of the other ones on his own. If he could get to the point where he could access Monster Point without having to use a Rumble Ball, that would be the best scenario, but I don't know if that's going to be something that can happen until he actually fully awakens his Devil Fruit, because I know there's the whole theory that, like, all of his different ones are like pseudo-awakenings, that he's somewhat awakened the Devil Fruit and such. And I think what would happen with Chopper would be that, you know, he would be interested in listening to Vegapunk and everything. Like, he'd be sitting there taking notes just like Frankie would be, and he would probably bring up his Rumble Balls and show them to Vegapunk. And I know Techie has mentioned this part before, but and others I think have mentioned it as well, so it's not necessarily my idea. But yeah, definitely Vegapunk would like look at the Rumble Balls and be like, these are quite interesting, and like see what he's done there. I know that Oda has mentioned that Black Maria also, you know, messed with her Devil Fruit and stuff and did like the same thing that Chopper did, where she was able to like use, you know, science and stuff to adjust it, or have, you know, work with Queen to do that as well. So there's that. So it's not an odd concept. And Vegapunk definitely would have been someone that thought about, oh, hey, how can I, you know, mess with a Devil Fruit and see what it can do. So there's that. So that wouldn't be surprising to me at all if Vegapunk is like, oh, yes, I've heard of this concept. This is a very interesting concept. And I've seen your the bounty posters and such, and I've been able to see about, you know, Vegapunk would possibly be able to get a hold of some of the different pictures of Chopper in his, you know, his Brain Point and in his Monster Point and stuff like that, depending on stuff, depending on what's available and stuff. And he'd probably be interested in that, because he's like, well, that's not the way a normal zone transformation works. And like, what kind of zone Devil Fruit do you have? You know, little reindeer person thing that is adorable. Chopper would be like, well, I have the Hito Hito Nami. I can, you know, turn into a human. And like, he shows off his, you know, his, what is it? It's arm point or whatever it is. I think that's his main, you know, big form that he goes into. That's not, you know, Monster Point and stuff. And he's like, well, that is quite interesting. And, you know, he probably explains it to Vegapunk, shows him his different forms, and like explains the way that Monster Point works. And Vegapunk would be like, you know, I think I can help you get to the point where you don't have those weird drawbacks where, like, after you use that form for too long, you turn into the tiny little thing. And I think Chopper would be very, very interested in, like, learning how to adjust that so that way he doesn't have those drawbacks, because while him having, you know, Monster Point for a longer duration of time is very helpful, it helped him with dealing with Queen, and it helped with a few other things here and there. And it can definitely help with, like, crowd control. And I know that at some point in time it's going to end up having to be, you know, the Straw Hats versus the Blackbeard Pirates. And it's probably going to be, like, you know, Chopper versus, oh, what's the stupid doctor's name? The horse's name is Stronger. Oh, I don't remember, but it's going to be Chopper versus him. I'll probably remember it halfway through the video. It'll be Chopper versus him, and that's going to result in something, and Chopper's going to have to fight him or whatever. And, you know, we'll see what happens there, but, like, Chopper being able to have, like, his Monster Point and not have to worry about the drawbacks of, like, a time limit of, like the way Luffy used to have to do and still kind of has to do when it comes to him using his Haki, and now with Gear 5th and such, you know, Chopper's going to want to find a way to get rid of those drawbacks as quickly as possible. And if working with Vegapunk would be able to do that, then Chopper would definitely do that. So I would say with that, in regards to where Chopper would land with that. Now, moving on to the last member of the crew, and the reason that I'm kind of doing this video is Nami's interaction with Vegapunk in regards to Zeus specifically. So, as we saw in the chapter where they have had to fight against S-Shark, Nami still has Zeus. Now, we saw Zeus at the end of Wano. We saw him, I think, in one of the panels where Nami's running around and having fun with Tama at, like, the festival. And so we know that Zeus is still around. And we know that he still has pretty much all of his abilities that we are aware of Zeus having. I was trying to think of, like, do we have any idea of how old Zeus is? And I'm like, he's probably around, like, you know, 55 to 60 years old, give or take, when Big Mom made him. And him and Prometheus, and then, Napoleon were probably some of her very first, very powerful homies that she made. And oh, I can assure you that Vegapunk would be very interested in getting his hands on a homie, particularly one that was one of Lin, Big Mom's personal homies. He would be very interested in that. I don't necessarily think he would try to like hurt Zeus and experiment on him, but he would definitely at least want to have, observe Zeus and kind of see the way he acts, see that Zeus has his own personality, probably find out from Nami how she got Zeus in the first place. And she's like, well, when we were on Whole Cake Island, I ended up like luring him away with like my weather balls and stuff like that. And he liked that. He came with us. And then I kind of made him my slave. And looking back on things, it may not have been like the best way of phrasing things, but I had him join me, and he lived inside of my Climatak for a while. And then I had him while we were on Wano and stuff. And he was very useful, and like I can ride around on top of him. And he helps power up my attacks and such. And during the battle of when we were on Onigashima and fighting against Kaido's crew there and such, Big Mom was there. And she basically pulled Zeus back to her to the point where like he couldn't like defy her anymore. And side note, we know that Nami, I think, still has a piece of Big Mom's Viva card, but Zeus didn't obey Nami because she had the Viva card. He obeyed Nami because he chose to obey Nami. In that, during the time frame there when they left Whole Cake Island and when they were on Wano for that time frame, he was choosing to obey Nami. Wasn't because of the Viva card. And, dealing with Big Mom and everything, Zeus left and he went back to Big Mom and everything. He abandoned me, glares at Zeus. Zeus like looks sad off to the side. He's like, I told you already, I'm sorry. You're like Zeus trying to apologize. But like, Nami is like, talking with him, and she's just like, or talking with Vegapunk, she's like, yeah, that's what happened. And then he, him, from what I understand, he was up on the roof with Big Mom and everything when she was fighting with Kaido, against Luffy and Zoro and the others and such. And another side note, do you think Nami knows about how the kid-in-law worked together to like trap Zeus inside of the box? Because I don't know if you do, but I think that would be hilarious if she found out about that. A couple of weeks after that happened, I think don't remember if I had been watching Aladdin or not, but like I had seen like the concept of like, Jafar is the genie, phenomenal cosmic power, and he gets trapped inside of the lamp, itty bitty living space, and I made the Zeus trapped in the lamp because that just seemed funny to me. So yeah, don't think I'm the first one to think of that, but I just thought that was funny, so I made it. But like, I don't think Nami necessarily knows about that happening to Zeus, but we know that sometime after that is when Zeus, like, kind of got separated from Big Mom and everything with, her falling, and then she created Hera, and then he saw the way that, Big Mom and Hera and Napoleon and Prometheus were all working together, and he got sad, and then he left. And then he goes and finds Nami, and he tries to, apologize to her. And she's like, no, you abandoned me. I don't want anything to do with you. And then we know that during that time frame is when, Big Mom attacks and, tries to have Hera eat Zeus and, absorb his power and everything. And Nami, like in a, last-ditched effort, I guess, to a degree, kind of gives Zeus a whole bunch of the weather eggs to power him up so he can try to at least somewhat defeat Hera, or somewhat to survive it or whatever. And he gets away, we know that it does some form of damage to Hera, and then Zeus ends up inside of Nami's Climatak when they're running away, and she's like, hey, my Climatak is talking to me. This is not normal. And she's like yelling at Zeus. And I know at one point she has Zeus like pinned. And she's just like, no, you abandoned me. I don't want anything else to do with you. And I know that somewhere in that time frame, that's when he ends up inside the Climatak, and then he ends up helping her fight Ulti, and he turns the Climatak into like a well, a spike ball, and like uses that to like hit ulti, and like it powers up Nami's attacks anyway and everything. And we see that interaction. She's still annoyed at him, whatever, but partway through that fight, and by the end of the fight, she's like, Zeus, he's mine now, and instead of it being like you're my servant or whatever, we'll be partners, we'll be equals. So we have that, and we know that now that Zeus is just with Nami now, in that regard, that he is on her side and he will do what he can to protect Nami. And I think that Vegapunk would find that very interesting, the fact that not only did one of Big Mom's homies that was made from her soul, her personal homie, decide that it left Whole Cake Island, it left Big Mom, went with Nami, and then, yes, technically went back, but then still left Big Mom again, and then went back to Nami, and now it has been able to inhabit her Climattack to the point where Zeus can manipulate the Climattack, and he will still follow Nami's orders and such, because we saw him try to help, protect Nami and the crew when they were dealing with S-Shark. And I think Vegapunk would find that very interesting, in the fact that, it's defied her. Like, Nami would probably tell him a little bit about, like, the Beaver card and stuff, and he'd be like, that is quite interesting. And the thing is, while Nami may not be exceedingly interested in devil fruits to begin with, in that regard of, like, unless Nami accidentally ate one, I don't see Nami getting any devil fruit powers. She now has Zeus. In regards to another power-up, I would like Nami to get Haki, or at least, like, maybe figure out that, like, her weather sensing ability is, like, observation Haki that's just on the cusp of unlocking, and she does end up unlocking it. I would be perfectly fine with that. But I would also like Nami to, like, awaken, like, armament Haki would also be nice, just to give her a little bit more of a defense. But she now has Zeus, and he can act as a defense for her as well. And Vegapunk would be very interested in this, because I highly doubt that Vegapunk has been able to get a hold of any of the homies. But that does bear the question of, how is Zeus still alive? And that's, where part of this video is. And there's the concept of, okay, either, there's different options here, and I think I talked about them in a different video. I think I talked about this back in one of the Pudding videos that I did back when it was, like, revealing, like, Pudding's, her new role or whatever. And I was talking about, well, what are the different options for what happened to Big Mom? And the options were either A, she is still alive, but she's, like, very badly injured, and her crew managed to get a hold of her and take her back, and either they're back on Whole Cake Island and Totland and stuff, and, like, trying to heal Big Mom up. I kind of just want Perispero to be straight up dead, but, maybe Perispero is still alive. I don't know. That's never explained yet, and we haven't seen anybody else have that power. We also have not seen anybody demonstrate the power of, being able to make homies yet either. But that it's, Lin Lin is either A, she's still alive, but she's, like, very badly injured and having to heal up. B, she's still alive, badly injured, and in a coma. Or, C, she is straight up dead. And the thing is with D is that there's two sub options with that. Because with A and B, if she's still alive, then that explains why Zeus is still alive. And we haven't seen any of the other homies, so we don't know if they're still alive. But if Big Mom is dead, then the options are either A, the homies are going to slowly die once they run out of however much little bit of a lifespan that they have. And given the fact that, like, Zeus and Prometheus and Hera and Napoleon were made from Big Lin Lin's, soul, her actual soul, that it might be that, like, they will live longer just because they have so much more of her soul in them or whatever, or she put so much power into them that they might just live longer in general. And he may still live long enough to, like, help with stuff, but he may still die at some point. Like, stop working the way that the other homies that they had to deal with in the forest stopped working when they got too scared because of Cracker and whatnot. And that's an option. The other option is just, the homies, which kind of goes along the lines of, like, the homies are just all going to, like, die, like, once Big Mom dies, like, they'll just straight up all die. And that still doesn't explain why Zeus would be around, because if it was just all the homies died, which would just leave Totland extremely defenseless at that point in time. I mean, yeah, they still have all the siblings and stuff, all the kids and stuff, but like that would just get rid of a whole bunch of their defenses in regards to like the chess piece keepers and pretty much everything in the seducing woods and like so many of the other things would just get so devastated in that regard, and like Totland would be so defenseless at that point in time, which could lead into like, I don't know, an alliance with someone, but still they would be very defenseless, or their defenses would take a huge blow in that regard. But I don't think Blackbeard's going to go back because he already got pudding and that was what he wanted. Because she has definitely seen Big Mom's poneglyph, and if she, between her memory abilities and everything, she'd probably be able to recall what it looks like if she awakens her third eye. But I already talked about pudding in a different video. But what we would see with the homies is like if we did get like a, cut to Totland now, if we see all the other homies are either dead or dying, if we cut to Totland and see that all of the other homies are either dead or dying, then, depending on how much, soul focus magic is in them or whatever, then that would give us an idea of maybe how much longer Zeus would have. Hopefully he's at least around enough to help with finishing up the story and dealing, with helping Nami battle against, Katarina Devon or whatever ends up happening with, who they have to fight against. For the Blackbeard pirates or whatever, or fight against in regards to, the world government. In regards to like the Gorosei and stuff. Hopefully Zeus at least lasts long enough for that. I was gonna go with the other option of, I don't think that Prometheus and Hera and Napoleon would end up wanting to go and like help Nami. I know that in a lot of fanfics and stuff that they've thought that, and there's theories that like, oh, Nami could get the soul fruit, the soul fruit, which would be interesting. Don't know exactly if that would end up happening. If anything, she would be able to then create her own homies and stuff like that the same way that Big Mom did, but Nami would definitely not be someone that would just go and like take someone else's soul and like use that. She wouldn't do that. She would use her own soul to make the homies, but I don't necessarily think that that would be something that she'd want to do. And even if they did happen to find Big Mom's devil fruit on the Thousand Sunny at some point in time, maybe Vegapunk has like a devil fruit detector and like he brings that with them and he's like, hey, I have this devil fruit detector. What does it do? Well, it detects devil fruit, so it I'm able to use it to scan places to try to find out if there's a devil fruit there. And like he activates it and he's just like, well, let's see if you have any devil fruits on your ship. And I'm like, well, we shouldn't. I don't think we do. And like he scans, activates it and it starts beeping and he like points it, like scans around the room, and it ends up landing on like the Mikan trees that Nami has. Like he walks over, like it's it's like hot and cold, and it gets beeps louder until he finds it. And like definitely if would make very much sense if Monet's devil fruit was there. The Yuki no Mi, if that was there, that would make perfect sense. But I was trying to think, because I know that, well, depending on where Big Mom would have died, if she did die, there's probably other fruit on Wano that was much closer to where she was than Nami's Minkin trees. So I highly doubt that devil fruit would end up there. But again, if they found the devil fruit, they'd be like, well, what the heck devil fruit is this? And unless Vegapunk knows what every single devil fruit looks like, which I would not put that past him if he knows that. If he looks at it and he's just like, oh, this is the Yuki no Mi. Turns you into snow. And they're like, wait, you mean like that bird woman we fought back on Punk Hazard that's been here that whole time? Wow. Surprised we never found it. Surprised we hadn't found it. And like, blah, 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 blah. They decide, does anybody want to eat this? Yeah, and if out of all of the crew, the one that would make most sense would be Nami, but she has, Zeus now, and they at least need to have some characters that can swim. And I don't think Oda would take away the opportunity for Nami to still be in a bikini and have to dive into the water and save Chopper, Brook, Robin, Luffy, whatever, and have her in a wet bikini. I don't think I don't think he's going to take that away from all of the male fans. Um, but that would be entertaining. Um, but um, I just think that Nami would be very interested, or at least somewhat interested, in finding out how Zeus has now like transferred into her Climatek. Like, why was he able to possess that? And he can still turn into his cloud form because we saw that already, because he turned into his cloud form at the end of Wano during the festival and when they were battling S Shark. So we know that he can still turn into that form and then just leave the Climatek the way it is. Which means that it can still be like he turns into the cloud form, Nami can, ride on top of him and ride him around and then use her, thunder tempos and stuff like that to, still like do crowd control in large areas, which would be very helpful when they're dealing against Marines and against Blackbeard's lackeys and stuff like that, taking out huge swaths of them at any given time. That and combined with like not with Luffy and Zoro's Conqueror's hockeys, combined with some of the other stuff that they have that they can use for crowd control, would be very useful. Also, Nami being able to fly around on Zeus would also be very useful in the fact that she would be able to be up high and would be able to kind of do like reconnaissance to a degree. Or Zeus himself can do reconnaissance since he can leave the Climatek and he can go and like go to see if he can figure out where maybe someone got taken or whatever. Like if they do end up on Hachinosu at some point in time, if they need to go and figure out where some of their they go to rescue Kobe or Pudding or whatever ends up happening with that, with whatever happens with Garp. I have a Garp video coming up soon, so that'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks, depending on what else we see. But one of the other things is like, yeah, they can just send Zeus to like go and like scout the island and everything like that and see if he finds anything, because he's like, he can defend himself. If an enemy shows up, he can electrocute them and knock them out or whatever. Or he can just like slip through stuff and make his way into where he's a cloud. He can become intangible and slip his way through small spaces and see if he can figure out where Pudding and Kobe and possibly Law, if he got captured or whatever, are. Pudding would recognize Zeus. And I mean, like, Zeus would recognize Law just because of whatever happened on, when they were battling on top of Onigashima. But also, I think Zeus and Kobe would not recognize each other because they've never met, unless they showed Zeus like a picture of what Kobe looked like from the newspaper or something like that, because like he got captured or whatever, if they know about that. But like, yeah, Zeus would be able to go in and like scout and try to see if he can find out if there's anybody that's been captured by Blackbeard beyond whoever else, and see who the prisoners are and see if any of them are their allies. Pudding would recognize him. Law would recognize him. Kobe probably wouldn't, but possibly. Get an explanation from Pudding and Law about what is this talking cloud and why does it have a hat? And Pudding would be like, but Zeus, how did you get here? I thought Mama was dead, or blah 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 blah. Glares at Law. Law's like, don't look at me. I was defending myself. Pudding, yeah, I can't really get angry at you for that. Okay. Zeus would be like, well, I work for Nami now, and it's like, okay. Law's like, yeah, he works for one of the Straw Hats now. He like went and joined them or whatever, and Pudding's like, well, that's strange. But like, there'd be that or whatever. And then maybe Zeus be able to like get them out of the cells, unless he like, I don't know, like electrocutes the lock to the point where it just gets fried. I don't think that would do anything, because unless he can like rust away the bars, which he can't. But I was trying to think if that would be something that like Zeus would be able to do in that regard. Because I think if he tried to do anything with like the Sea Prism Stone handcuffs that like Pudding and Law definitely have on them, particularly Law, given his powers, definitely has Sea Prism Stone handcuffs on him at the moment, I would assume, if he's captured. Then Nami, then Zeus wouldn't really be able to do anything to help Law at that point in time, because I don't think Zeus can do anything against Sea Prism Stone. And Pudding, I don't remember if we saw Pudding with Sea Prism Stone handcuffs on her one way or the other. But I went off tangent, but yes, I do think that Nami would be somewhat interested in learning about what Vegapunk has to say about devil fruits, and Vegapunk would definitely be interested in Zeus and the fact that this is a homie that belonged to Big Mom. Probably hasn't been able to study any of those yet, and definitely has not been able to replicate the Surasura because, or the Soul Fruit, excuse me. Or I highly doubt he's been able to because I can't think of a moment where he would have been able to get his hands on like Big Mom's genetics. Because we're unaware of her ever being captured by the world government. And even if they did capture, get some form, had the opportunity to take some form of like a genetic sample from her back when she was at like, I don't know, God Valley or whatever. Vegapunk wasn't part of the government back then. He was off on his own at that point in time. So that wasn't an issue, and he wouldn't have been able to say, hey, get me a genetic sample from Big Mom. And unless someone has been able to sneak into Totland, which is already extremely difficult to do, sneak to wherever the heck Big Mom is, and somehow get a genetic sample from her, either from her blood or from her hair or something, that would be exceedingly difficult to do. And that is just not something that I would not think that would be something that would have been feasible at the time. Given how, that she's the lead balloon, that it would be exceedingly hard for her to take physical damage to the point where she would bleed, under normal circumstances or in battle and stuff like that. So I don't think that would have been the case. So, and even if he had Zeus, he still would be able to maybe he'd be able to find a way to replicate Zeus, but I don't think that would be something that Nami would be particularly interested in. But that's what I wanted to go with. That's what I had. I probably rambled a little bit more than necessary, but I just wanted to get this out there. So I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.